Hello, dear soul, and welcome to the Lightbearer's Library. Today is the journal entry for Saturday, September 13th. Today I wanted to talk about the concept idea of soul. And it got me thinking about, this because yesterday I was really excited and thrilled to have people subscribing to the Lightbearer's Library. And I was thinking about the word subscriber and how commercial it is, and how it just doesn't feel like a good word to me. Like each subscriber is a soul out there, a person, an individual, and subscriber is such a, I guess, commercial term because, if you subscribed to a newspaper way back when, or subscribed to a newspaper, like you paid to receive a subscription, and thus you were a subscriber. And I just think that it's not the right term. I was like, oh, a new subscriber, and how wonderful. And I felt so much gratitude. And I was like, well, but that's a soul out there. So thank you to all the souls who have chosen to subscribe. And so when my husband and I were like, ooh, a new soul has subscribed. But it got me thinking about the idea of what soul and what is soul. And, I was thinking about how it's kind of, obviously it's invisible, unseen. It feels to me like the deepest part of myself inside. It feels like it has a voice of its own, that it can tell me when I'm going in the right direction, when I'm going in the wrong direction. And that's kind of what I call that voice, is the voice of my soul. And so I was thinking about that, and then I was continuing to read on in I've been reading Jung's psychological types, and the next part I was reading was about souls. So I thought that was really interesting. He said, we define the soul on the one hand as the relation to the unconscious, and on the other hand as a personification of unconscious contents. So it's kind of two things, and we think about them both. And I thought that was exactly it, because when we talk about our soul, we're talking about like the personification of our unconscious contents, but then it's also a relationship to our unconscious that we're talking about. And I thought that was like, yeah, that made sense to me. And he said, the soul conveys the forces of the unconscious to consciousness. It is both receiver and transmitter, an organ for perceiving unconscious contents. So I thought that was, because I've been contemplating this idea of depth, and how do we go deeper within ourselves? How do we find more meaning and get to know our souls better? Is that, how do we find more truth and depth? And so I think what I'm understanding is that this is kind of where the entry into how we go deeper, because what he goes on to say is that what the consciousness then perceives from the soul or from the unconscious are symbols. So these symbols, I'll just read a bit from his book, or I'll paraphrase a little bit. He says, the soul gives birth to images that from the rational standpoint of consciousness are assumed to be worthless. And so they are, in the sense that they cannot immediately be turned into account in the objective world. So to the objective world, it's kind of like, it's just, you just came up with a triangle. Like, what does that mean? Or whatever the symbol is. And he says, the first possibility, so what can we do with these symbols? We in whether it's in dream work, or if we're in an imaginal state or a meditative state, and we get a vision or a symbol or something from the unconscious. He says the first possibility of making use of them is artistic, if one is in any way gifted in that direction. A second is philosophical speculation. A third is quasi-religious, leading to heresy and the founding of sects. And a fourth way of employing the dynamics of these images is to squander it in every form of licentiousness. And one more thing I wanted to share, he said that the main value of these symbols is the promoting of our happiness and well-being, irrespective of external circumstances. So I thought that was that, because that's where I want to go. That's where I want to head, is to find that sense of centeredness and peacefulness, no matter what's happening in the objective outside world. That's kind of what I'm aiming for. And so I think I would love to hear from you about what your thoughts are on the soul, your soul, how you perceive your soul, and I've heard from some souls out there who are wanting to go deeper and go deep, and how do we do that? How do we do this deep work? And I'm learning, and I want to learn. I think there's a lot of tools that we can do, and I think dream work is one of them. Christine, one of the souls that commented on my last video, or one of my last videos, was saying, have I read Jung's Man and His Symbols? I've not read that. I've got it on hold in the library, but I think that's part of it, is dream work, decoding the symbols that arise from our own unconscious. I think it's a very personal mission that we're, I don't know, decoding our own myth or making our own myth. I'm not entirely certain, but I think that's kind of where we're going, and that those symbols are really personal to us, and that we can, tell our own story to ourselves, so that we can make sense of why we're here, why we are wired the way that we are, why we see the world the way we see the world, that is different from others. And so this is what's kind of I've been thinking about in the last day or two, is the idea of my soul, the idea of you and your soul being here, listening and engaging, and how can we tune into the conversation, or the what our soul is trying to tell us. And I think it's through dream work and symbols, and so I think that's a practice, and I'm not entirely certain how to go about it, but I'm really excited, and I can't wait to continue sharing where I'm at on this journey. And I'd love to hear about what your experience has been, if you've done any of this work, or if you're interested in engaging in this kind of work, and where you might start. Anyway, that's it for today. Signing off. XOXO, Kate.